Welcome to Mastery Class 001, a new series that I'm going to host talking about the Alchemy Code. And this first video in this series is called Emotional Intelligence is Key. I'm going to explain to you the process of the Alchemy Code during a series of these videos. And the Alchemy Code is a process that I apply in business mentoring, individual coaching, and in my books, in my trainings, in my courses. It is a process I apply everywhere when true change is needed. And it doesn't really matter to me if I'm dealing with a team or I'm dealing with an individual, the process remains the same. There is certain aspects we have to take in consideration if you truly want lasting change. So today I'm going to start talking about emotional intelligence, but in order to get there, we actually start with a different step in the Alchemy Code, because emotional intelligence is key. Without it, you really do not have a real choice in life, because emotional intelligence is in the back of the architecture of how you live, how you behave, and how you feel in life. What is mostly in front of it is your mind. And in the Alchemy Code Part 1 series, I write about mind mastery first, because without being able to understand the architecture of your mind, you will not be able to see and feel where you disconnect or where you connect to your emotional intelligence. It's a very weird thing. You cannot see what you don't know. And the same goes for you cannot feel what you're not connected to. So in order for you to start working on your emotional intelligence, I, at the same time, have to work with you on your mental mastery. So in my books, in my courses and teachings, I always work on different levels. First of all, we have to work on the mental mastery, because if you are not in charge of your mind rules the show and overrules your intuition, your emotional intelligence. So, without you having an understanding of this process, um, the meaning of emotional intelligence usually is a bit vague. But once we get working on becoming aware of what the difference is about between thoughts, emotions, and sensations, then you will start to learn the various sides of yourself. And I always joke a little bit that I give people split personalities when I start working with them. But eventually you do. You have not a split personality, but you have a personality and you have an authentic true self. And your authentic true self is your emotional intelligence. That's where your internal guidance and information and intuition comes from. That's who you initially are and how you perceive the world through your existence. This is the challenge for all of us, is to learn to trust and belong to that authenticity and not fall in the trap of becoming completely adaptive to the outside world. That's what the mind will offer you. And it's a protector, and your mind is a genius at the same time, but it can be your worst enemy as well. Because your mind is always focused on how to belong in the external world, even if that means that you will have to do a concession in who you truly are and what you hold in your potential. Because the mind doesn't care. The mind just wants you to continue living, to survive, to belong, to find your place in that external world. But the one thing we all strive for is that feeling of fulfillment, that feeling of belonging, and that feeling of happiness, health, to have a purpose, to feel meaning, to feel alive. And that cannot be found in the external world. So in the end, your mind will not lead you there. Your mind is very well behaved when it's ruled by your emotional intelligence, but not the other way around. If your mind rules the game, rules your life, and it doesn't matter what we're looking at, if we're talking about running a business, leading a team, leading your own life, being a parent, leading children, leading your health into a different chapter. If you want to take the lead, your mind will get you lost. Your mind is like that trap that keeps circling and circling, and there is no end, because the mind is never satisfied. The mind will keep analyzing and will give you different things to work on, to chase after, to have, because it's not built. It hasn't got the capability to give you the emotional experience of feeling fulfilled. And well, it's already in my words, the mind is there to analyze and to think, but you cannot sense and feel anything with your mind. And so these two parts of you are very different operating systems. Well, your mind is an operating system. Your emotional intelligence, it's actually life itself, your life force, your it's your power. It's where that's what uniquely makes you. So it's not really a system, it's your innate essence. But just to explain everything, let's just put it in three sequences. There is the mind that causes thoughts, there is emotional intelligence that causes emotions, and then we have the body as a vehicle that gives you sensations. So if you feel sick, you feel the sensation of illness, of pain, of feeling uncomfortable, feeling unpowerful, feeling exhausted. That's the sensation part. Going back, the emotional intelligence talks to you through the language of emotions. And without learning to understand, but first you need to connect to it, and then you need to learn that language of your emotions, because the emotional language is very, very personal. It's like observing colors is a very, very personal experience. The way we choose words to express that what we experience is in general a very, very personal experience. It's very unique. There is probably nobody like you experience what your experience at the same time. And if we do encounter that synchronicity in experiences, that feeling that connection and feeling that understanding, it's very joyful, but it's very rare. So chasing after that can be a big, big trap as well for people. Because the funny thing is, although our life experience through our emotional intelligence is so, so unique, psychologically, we strive to belong. We strive to be a part of the collective. We strive because it gives us our basic need. And our basic need in the first part of our life is to be part of a tribe, part of a family, because as children, we are not independent enough yet to grant our own safety. So the evolutionary and psychological course of our life pushes us through two phases. And once you understand these through two phases in your life, and you understand the three parts of your existence, your mental, your emotional, and your physical life, that altogether will give you the experience of the spiritual life as well. And with the spiritual life, I mean that you will feel that authentic connection to deeper meaning, to a deeper fulfillment, and a higher purpose in yourself. And like I said in the past mastery classes, a higher purpose does not mean more success, more money. It can be finding a higher purpose in the very, very, very basic sense of life itself. Giving life, nurturing life, being part of creation in whatever shape or form. That's the sort of fulfillment that eventually only a spiritual life, a spiritual understanding will give you. Right. So the Alchemy Code helps you to crack that code of life by understanding the phases we go through in our human development. And in my whole mastery teachings, I do not just teach personal development. It is actually, I teach you the architecture of how we as humans evolve and the phases we go through if we want to go through the cycles of life and find that deeper meaning and reach that potential and unfold and experience not only happiness, but being able to also process the contrast in life. So it's bigger than just personal development. With the Alchemy Code, I hand you the architecture and the process. So whatever you're going through in life, in whatever phase you are, you can always fall back on that understanding of yourself. Because I can explain you the architecture, and I have worked with hundreds of people on this architecture and on this process, but the story and the experience and the unfolding and the expression of the person I work with is always unique. And that's what makes my work so beautiful. So I take you through steps. I work with you on your mental mastery. I connect you through your emotional intelligence, and I assist you in learning that language. And then the third part is to work on that true identity, to embody and from your emotional intelligence, build up who you are. And that sounds a little bit fake. So let's dive into it a little bit more. And in the coming masterclasses, I'm going to talk more about that. I'm going to share my screen because I always have to draw because it makes it a little bit more clear, I hope. If you have questions, by the way, you can put them in the comments and I will look at that later. Right. So, I have explained to you what consciousness is and what the field is that we experience in the outer world and in the inner world at the same time. And we talked about dimensions and we talked about mastering the field of translating your potential, your seed of life that you are born with on this earth. Here you are. This is your seed of life planted. And through the alchemy process of life, it will help you becoming more and more clear about who you are, where you are supposed to be, and what you are supposed to do by learning the contrast and learning to listen to what feels good to you. And what feels good to you doesn't have to feel good to me. That's where your emotional intelligence is very personal. And in the contrast of life, to be understanding of when doors shut or things set back secure and learning to listen to them by asking questions and being curious, not saying why me, but what does this mean? Because that will help you to get back into alignment when you do feel that choice, when you do operate from emotional intelligence. You feel that difference between the positive emotions and the negative emotions. And that's where your emotional intelligence, that's over here, this is the middle of who you are. That's the emotional intelligence that comes from the collective consciousness that you are a part of, but you have been planted on this earth. This is your vortex, how we call it. And this is where you get to experience the world from the inside out. And when we say out, I mean the expression of who you are. Not saying that you live a life completely in full alignment, that is the only purpose you have, because you cannot live without contrast. So these moments where you fall out of alignment, fall very deep, and have experienced even deeper emotions of feeling lost, because before we reach that path in our life where we find alignment, you are also supposed to have setbacks, to feel lost, to understand the contrast of life, because without contrast, the upper, the higher, the beauty has less value. So these dimensions of lower and contrasting experiences, emotions, and thoughts have a reason. And the reason is that you are supposed to evolve, to learn, to build yourself, and to grow the self-awareness, so that eventually, when you do start working on alchemy, and alchemy is in the deepest meaning, is about working your way from a dark to light. Let me stop sharing for a moment. And alchemy helps you to become aware of darker, contrasting experiences in your life, and understanding how your thoughts and your emotions and your experiences, your sensations can help you navigate through that, can help you and assist you in making choices for yourself, taking care of yourself, setting boundaries. So this will help you eventually in your life, for your health, in your family, but also in your business. Doing business only from an intellectual, mental part is working with half your instrument. Having a compass to emotionally guide you and understand what is happening in the dynamic and in the interaction with people is doing a higher type of business, is understanding psychology, is understanding interhuman connection, is understanding not only transition, which is hard change, taking steps, building things, but also the psychological and emotional process that occur when, as people, as groups, as teams, as societies, we move through changing environments. So on the drawing that I showed you, the emotional intelligence is what helps you navigate. Once you connect to that intelligence, it will help you feel whether something is good or not good for you. This is how tasting life through your intelligence will help you becoming more and more aware of who you are. But in the beginning of your life, what will help you in the first phase is your adaptation. And adaptation comes through the mind, because the mind is connected to the outside world, and your mind will start very quickly between the age of 0 and 7, will start telling you who you are and how you can belong in the family where you grew up in. So this is where the mind starts building the architecture of the personality. And personality versus authenticity is the two parts of, well, if I say you have a split personality, this is the split, but one is the personality and the other is actually the authentic true self. The personality is built through your mind. The mind is connected through the nervous system to the outside world, and it will start sensing and translating that in thoughts and translating that in beliefs on how to understand and being able to control this life. So first of all, as a child, you will start doing like a testing. What will give you attention? What will give you connection? This is where you learn what you can and cannot do, what you can and cannot say, who you can and cannot be. All of these questions is what you are testing as a child. How much space is there for me to be who I am? How much color can I show? How much expression can I take? Can I give to this world for me to be accepted, first of all, by your parents? So the nest that you are born into is very, very important in the build-up of your personality, which also means how much of your authenticity has been built since the beginning of time. Because the best thing is when you know how to adapt, so you know how to belong, and we all need to belong and be able to adapt. You need to know when you have to stop for in front of a traffic light. You need to know how to be flexible being with other people. The only thing is that you shouldn't be that flexible or adaptive that you lose your authenticity. And that's where it will start to hurt. Literally later on in life, it will start to hurt. So your mind builds that mental architecture of the personality to make sure that you are accepted in the family and in society, in the school system that you grow up in, so you can belong with the people that are around you. And some people are very good at that, blend in and adapt as part of their qualities. But they will also be the one who will later on in life, most of the time, have more issues with connecting to their own true potential, to feel that fulfillment of who they are, because they're so good in adapting and being with others, being by yourself, making choices by yourself or for yourself becomes a big challenge. So the first step in alchemy is to go back and really, really understand what your mind is built up of. And in the mind mastery process, I explain to you how that buildup of programming, how that works, because there are certain steps in the programming. And in my next videos, I will explain a little bit more about that. But you have a unique mental architecture because it's based on your upbringing, on your family dynamics, your family system, on the story that is your life. And based on all of those facts, you unconsciously have chosen the mental pattern that will give you the most safety, because that is the first psychological need we have as humans to survive, to build on. This is the first stage, the first building block, if you wish, in your emotional intelligence development that is needed. So the mind will do everything it can to feel that safety. And sometimes when safety is not granted, when you do not come from a family of stability or a society or a country of stability, you will have a deeper wired mental architecture that is more vigilant on how to get that safety in the outside world, which probably has caused also some concessions in the expression and the feeling of your own emotional guidance. Yeah, because if safety is needed, um, safety is built in the outside world in the first part of your life until you are grown up enough, emotionally strong enough, and physically strong enough to start taking care of yourself and make your own choices. So the first half of your life, the outside world is more important than the inside world. Ideally, these two are balanced. So you have experience in the outside world, you understand the world, but you also have built up enough understanding and enough stability in yourself that has granted some of your emotional intelligence also to come online. And then you have a lot more balance and flexibility in who you are. Going back to that drawing. Yeah. This means that throughout your life experience, we all experience dark and we all strive to be more in the light. And in the light, I mean to feel that purpose, that happiness, that health, that belonging, and that fulfillment. Navigating through that, you need three parts. You need to understand where your mind takes you. You need to understand how to fuel that body, that vehicle. But then in the middle, that emotional intelligence, that true self is key. Without this emotional intelligence, if this gets blocked off through life, because normally it gets blocked off when emotions are overwhelming, and this normally leads to the past. When this happens, when emotions are overwhelming and you do not yet have the capability to navigate through that, and you don't get the support as a child to do that, it's hard to navigate through it and take steps in the direction of that light part of the dimension of your life. Your emotional intelligence usually gets blocked off, and we seek control and stability and safety through the mind. This is where the mind takes over, and the mind will drive you and it will get you somewhere, but it's usually on the path of other people. And that can be your parents, that can be educators, it can be, well, it doesn't really matter because your mind is always focused on the external world. It wants to belong out there. But in order to feel that alignment, you need to find that belonging from the inside out, because that's where the true self can only guide you. Right. So we have that mind, we have the emotional intelligence, and the third part of alchemy, we work on that identity embodiment, which means from the translation of your emotions, if you know what you do like and you know what you don't like, if you know what you do want and you know what you don't want, so that's a build up in life. You can start making choices. You can start filtering, designing, taking steps to create that life and to follow that alignment and that purpose in your life, which sounds beautiful and easy, but it's absolutely not. Because sometimes it does mean to take steps away from the path that most people are following. And this is where identity and authenticity needs to become stronger than the mental safety that the mind is seeking. But this is why in Alchemy we work on the 3 processes, because you need to be clear on where your mind pulls you out of fear, being unable to listen to that guidance in the middle of that trinity I just showed you, because that emotional intelligence will say, go here, do that, say that. But if the mind is scared and the mind is in charge, it will drag you away from that experience and say, don't do that, don't say that, don't go there. It'll be scary, it'll be different, it'll be difficult, it'll be hard. Nobody else is doing that. So if you do not master your mind, it will win from the emotional intelligence, because your intuition is just whispers once. It's very soft, it's very gentle, but the mind can be very directive. It can be very strong and very demanding. Your mind is the ego, and the ego we all need because we need to belong and adapt in the world and be flexible, but it's focused on belonging to others. Your emotional intelligence is guidance that goes through you. You can start listening to it and become attuned to it, become attuned to emotions if, and this is a very important step in the alchemy process, if you have worked through the past. Emotional intelligence in the here and now to connect to is impossible when you have a complete life story that is unprocessed, unknown, unconscious, unintegrated, and unhealed. So in any trajectory, even in teams and even in management teams, we need to understand the story of the system. And the system can be you as a person. So where do you come from? What have you been through? What emotions have you stored in the unconscious that has cluttered up the pipe, if you wish, of where the emotional intelligence flows through? Because if you haven't worked through emotions like fear, anger, anxiety, shame, guilt, sadness, it means it's still there. You're just pushing it away, trying to find that life out there. But you're supposed to live through experience. You're supposed to, once you have the emotional maturity, go back and integrate those pieces, because without the darkness, there would be no light. Without that experience that holds information, not only about the unwanted, but also about the wanted. You have gone through these experiences for a reason. And I am always very interested to hear from people what their life story is. And it's always beautiful to see it unfold and to have people later on in the process understand why they went through these experiences, because it gave them the resilience, the wisdom, the evolution, the experience that they can now use to become those higher versions, to become that true self identity that needs that embodiment. And embodiment just doesn't happen today. You don't become a good leader, a good teacher, a good mother. That happens through your life experience, that happens through understanding, through that psychological awareness, emotional awareness of how life works. So emotional intelligence, without having worked through your past, will have you stuck in the mental perceiving of life. Because when it's hard for you to feel through pain, to feel through anxiety, when you push that away, the experience of anxiety, is lost on you. And so you can't push that experience away or that past away, because that will automatically push you into that mental drive. And that's not authenticity, that's adaptation. So if you want to come into that intuition, you need to clear up the past. You need to work through your story, because that's where your wisdom is. You need to start seeing the information behind anxiety, the information behind shame, behind guilt, behind sadness, frustration, loneliness. And there, on the other side of that contrasting emotion, you will be led to experience the beautiful emotions in life with that type of information. So there's a whole skill of emotions that that will open up for you once you start working with your emotional intelligence. Working through the past will give you more clarity in the here and now. So becoming aware of your mind, becoming aware of your emotional intelligence does not come without timelines. But I explained to you that that is key if you want to come on the other side and experience all those beautiful emotions that come with feeling fulfilled, feeling healthy, feeling happy. Because without experiencing yourself, your true self, not your personality, mental self, but without experiencing your true self from within, understanding your story, what you've been through, why you've been through it, chewing through these experiences, you will not come to the other end and feel the deeper meaning of fulfillment, of joy, of peace, of passion, all of these beautiful emotions. So there is no other way than go through that alchemy from dark to light. There is no other way. And the embodiment, part 1 is mind mastery. Part 2 of the books is coming live soon, is emotional intelligence. And part 3 is embodiment of true identity. It could not go the other way. You need to know where your mental architecture holds you back from. Then go through an emotional experience. And from that emotional experience, you can start making the choices that will help you with building your autonomy, your authenticity in who you are, in what you do, and how you live from internal wisdom. There is no other way. So this is why the mind mastery comes first, because you have to know what that mind is telling you, where that mind is holding you back. And if we open that door, we break through the mental matrix, if you wish. If you break through the mental patterns that hold you back from experiencing yourself, your mind will also start working with you. Because if you are not scared of the fear anymore, because the mind is fearful, it runs on anxiety, it doesn't want to lose out, it doesn't want to be different, it doesn't want to be left alone. If you break through that and you become the boss in your own life again, your emotional intelligence, your heart, your true self is behind that steering wheel, and it can shut the mind up and say, you're telling me not to do it. It's okay. I can handle this. If you move beyond that anxiety, if you move beyond being scared to lose out, being scared of anything, your mind will start following you. And you can give it directions. Give me 3 ideas about that. Give me a list of this and that. Think of the best idea of how we could do this and that. When the mind is behind you and you are leading, it starts opening up and it starts thinking in possibilities. We could do this, you could do that, we could build this, we could create this. So with a positive, open mind, you can actually start building and creating from that true identity, but not the other way around. And the hard thing is that when I explain this process, it seems very linear, but unfortunately, it's very situational. So you can be fine in some part of your life or in some part of the day, but when somebody says something to you or something happens that causes you stress, and again, that's very personal because what causes you stress doesn't have to cause me stress. But when that happens, your fear can get triggered and then the mind takes over and that's where you block. So it doesn't have to be all the time. People that come to me in coaching, teams that come to me in coaching, management development teams that come to me in coaching, they are all doing fine. If business is doing fine, if the team is working fine, if I am happy and nothing's going on in my life. But when the shit hits the fan, that's when you need to be in charge, because that's where the mind takes over, shuts down, doesn't think in possibilities, but starts working on anxiety and adaptation. And that's where it blocks you off. So normally, this whole mastery is wanting to be acquired when there's urgency, which is making it harder because then out of fear, the mind wants to control and doesn't want to let go of that power because it's scared. So when there is stress, we even have to work on that mental mastery even harder. Right. That was the mastery class on why emotional intelligence is key. I am going to bring out the next book very soon. Mind Mastery is already out on Amazon. Emotional Intelligence is coming. And I'm going to be talking and teaching about the Alchemy Code more in these series. Last night, I published an article that goes together with this video. I'll be linking it in the description below. And there is a mastery tool that comes with this teaching as well if you're a paid subscriber. And that's it for this week. Next week, there'll be another mastery class 002 on the Alchemy Code. Hope to see you there. And if you have any questions, just send them to me in DM or in the comments, and I'll answer them very happily. See you next time. Bye-bye.